So this past weekend, I was in a listing appointment with one of our agents to help our agents.
You went on a listing appointment.
I went on a listing appointment.
Sharran went on a listing appointment. Tell me more.
So it's one of my favorite things to do. I've been on hundreds of these, but the interesting part, we went on this appointment, it was a $7 million listing. We were the third person in the room, and we won the listing in 20 minutes. And the interesting part is I sat back in the car with the agent, and the agent told me, he's like, I didn't even care that we won the listing. What I want is this time with you to debrief. That is the most important thing, because most agents have never had an external pair of eyes who has seen so many different things inside behind closed doors. They've never had that. When you and I and Tom Toole are calling, there are other people in the bullpen that are listening to our conversation. But inside the listing appointment, no one has ever had any perspective.
That's right.
So when we sat there and we debriefed that appointment, he just said to me, he goes, I learned more in this 20-minute debrief than I learned in 18 years of selling real estate. And that's what's super cool. And dude, here's the crazy part. We didn't open one piece of material, right? And I'm not saying you had to do that.
Did you bring material?
We brought material.
Right, so how did you win the appointment, and then what did the agent learn in the debrief?
Yeah, so this is actually the core of my presentation today, so I'll take you through it. There's 3 big pieces, and I say, number 1, find the truth. Number 2, organize the complexity. And number 3, activate the future. Finding the truth is, a lot of times we say, they'll tell you, oh, I'm interested in price, I'm interested in commission, I'm interested in how long this is going to take to sell. And then we ask them, like, why? They'll go to the logical components of saying, oh, because how long will it take me to sell my home? All you agents are exactly the same, etc. That's good, it's logical, but you've not gotten to the feelings yet. Mm-hmm. So a big part of this is the iceberg of getting to the truth. If you can't get to the truth, you have no way on how to actually prepare for the presentation. So until we get to the truth, we can't even do much from that. And I'll give you the simplest of things. The number 1 thing an agent can do in a listing appointment that will dramatically increase their chances of winning is not to do the tour first.
Okay.
Because you walk in the door, here's what, walk in, knock, knock, oh my gosh, I love your house. You ski in Aspen, I ski in Aspen too. Oh, would you like a tour? Oh, let me get a tour. Like, you're trying to take off your shoes, trying to get a tour. And the entire tour that you take on this home, Byron's head is behind me. I have no rapport. And after I start doing the tour, you start asking questions. Oh, have you seen that house? Have you seen this house? Our kitchen's better. And you have no rapport, and you have to answer all these questions. And by the time you come back and ready to sit down, what happens?
You've put yourself in a defensive position.
100%.
Okay.
The key thing that an agent should walk in and say, hey, Byron, great to see you. Where can we sit down and strategize? That's it, right? You don't need the tour, because we all know that we don't need the tour right away. We just need a good plan. And then when the conversation takes a break, when the conversation energy changes, use the energy change and then take the tour. And I always tell the agents, instead of taking the tour as just because you want to see the house, take the tour intentionally. So the way I always tell people to take the tour is, when you see the energy and the lull drop in the appointment, say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'd love to take a tour of the house, but I want to do it in 2 ways. First, I'd love for you to walk me through so that I can see how you live here and why it's good for you. But after that, I want to walk it through by myself to see what a buyer would see overall. But when you frame that is significantly better than walking in and taking the tour, which is a no consequence tour.
Yeah.
And so where can you sit down and strategize actually allows you to pull out what they want. That is the first 4 words that should, like, where can you sit down and strategize? 5 words. That's what should come out of your mouth, because it doesn't matter what they say. Now at least you are in rapport with them, as opposed to waiting till you get to that point, and then you don't have to struggle with all the other questions that you're going to get on the tour.
On this appointment that you just went on, did you guys even do the tour?
Nope, no
20
tour.
minutes,
no
boom,
tour.
Strategized, turned into an agreement.
An agreement, yep.
Wow.
No tour. And the interesting part is, he said all he wanted was, he was moving to Scottsdale. He's like, hey, all I want is a plan. I was like, great, let's do the plan. When do you need to be in Scottsdale? How long is it going to take?
So his truth was simple. It was less complex than maybe some situations, and you're going to have that. The more listing appointments you go on, you're going to find something that's just like, I've got a simple goal, it's to get to Scottsdale.
That's it. And the interesting part is, they'll tell you if you just ask them, right? They'll just tell you. And most people, they know we're going to market the property. But if we spend 80% of our time talking about marketing, we actually minimize our skills in other areas. We minimize our skills in able to coordinate all the resources. We minimize our skills in being able to negotiate. We minimize our skills in able to get timing right. We minimize our skills in being able to do contractual stuff. The more we talk about marketing the appointment, the more we minimize our skills and our impact in every other component.
Yeah.
When the client already knows that we're going to market, we're actually telling them stuff that they already know. They expect it anyway.
And the things that they expect, Zillow, spending time on that, you're going to really put yourself just in a box with everybody else, where it's like, hey, here are the, list them out.
Yeah.
Here are the things that we do on top of what everybody else is going to do, professional photography, blah, 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 right? Here's our list of things that are going to get more exposure
Yeah.
on your property, the plan.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And then to your point, all the other things that they may not realize.
And the way to do that is also anytime you want to separate from the competition, you got to brand the competition.
right. Here's what they all do. We do it too.
Here's what the average agent does, and here's what we do. So if you
Yeah.
keep referring to the average agent, it makes that, and you say, on the average agent does what I call, of course, marketing. Well, of course we do the brochures. Of course we put it on the MLS.
Yeah.
Of course we do that. Next time the average agent walks in the room and says, we put it on the MLS, we have an 87-point marketing plan. You do that, they're like, oh, Sharran said that's of course marketing. So it puts them in that bucket.
Yeah.
We've got to brand the problem. Otherwise, they'll never see you separate from the solution in any way.
What you just articulated is something, like you said, very few can. So what did the debrief look like?
So every time I think the debrief was like, hey, he wanted to do the tour first, and I cut the tour off, and he's like, why did you do that? Right?
It was probably so foreign to that agent.
Right. And the second thing that we talked about was he's like, I drew a mind map, and I'll tell you about this for a second. When we talk to a client about something, they have a lot in their head. And so I started mind mapping it on a piece of paper. And my goal, Byron, is to fill that sheet with so much stuff that it freaks them out. And I call it silent overwhelm. I want to just say, you do this, you're going to pricing. We don't know what we're going to price it at. There's a list price, there's a sales price, there's a negotiated price. Then we're going to negotiate more. So I draw out this mind map, and it looks like a chicken scratch mind map. And they look at it, and they're like, that's a lot. I want them to say that's a lot, because that is silent overwhelm. And once they get overwhelmed, now you can present hey, let me tell you how we do it. And he was like, why did you do that mind map? And I said, I wanted them to see so much complexity in the process. And the phrase I gave him was, showcase the complexity, but deliver the simplicity. You got it. You can't just say, oh, we take care of it all for you. If you do that, then they just minimize what you do. But if you showcase all that complexity on that mind map, they're like, wow, there is so much. But Sharran's going to do all this for me. Now I understand.
So you're not afraid to lean into their fears a little bit, which can seem confusing and complex in this whole bundle of problems and issues. You're not afraid to lean into that.
We should. We have to create.
I agree.
We have to create silent overwhelm, because most of the consumers don't know how to talk about this pain, this fear, this frustration. They have no idea, because they don't do it on a day-to-day basis. They don't have language for their concerns, fears, frustrations, and aspirations. And the more they see it visually, the more they realize that you can help them. There's this great quote that says, when you can define the problem better than your client, they automatically assume that you have the solution.
Yes.
And like, dude, that is what motivates me every time. I'm like, how can I define this problem better than what the client is seeing? And they're like, oh my gosh, he understands. They should be thinking he understands. As soon as they think he understands, we have won.
This is part of what I'm going to be talking about today. You have a lot of agents that are like, well, I'm not reading the headlines. I'm just only focused on the basics. But then you end up using 1980s talking points, which is, it's always a good time to buy because it's real estate, it's an asset, and you just repeat the same thing over and over and over again instead of leaning into those headlines, leaning into the fear that's out there that most of your consumers are absorbing every single day and knowing it better than they do.
Yeah, dude, you did a video recently and you talked about not just providing solutions, I'm probably paraphrasing this, not just providing solutions, but the consumer does not know the options that are available to them. Mm-hmm. And I think in today's market, more than any other market, the agent has to show up not with a solution mindset like they used to, but with an option mindset. And say, Byron, we have 3 options. Let me walk you through what this looks like. House A is $850,000, but you can get this amount of loan. We can probably get a seller carryback, but there's no concessions. House B is this amount of loan. House C is this amount, but House B and C, they're in a better school district, but House A has a better commute. Based on all of this, let's see what we can tweak in each one of these to make this a win for you. Now, you're in an option-based conversation, and you're already the advisor as opposed to being a solution-based conversation, right? And I think in a shifting market, we are forced to be more option-oriented, because then the client's like, oh, Byron gave me all the options.
If you sit down with your financial planner, they're not going to say, hey, you retire at 65 and give you one plan. They're going to say, well, if you want to retire at 59, this is what we need to do to get there, but this is what it would look like at 65.
Yeah.
And if you really want to put in you 55, lay on a beach, this is what we need to do between now and then. And they're going to give you those options, and they're going to start to tweak the plan accordingly based off of what you want the end outcome to be.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the second part of the first part of the debrief was not doing the tour. The second part of the debrief was this idea of silent overwhelm. The third part of the debrief was actually bringing the marketing to life without talking about marketing. So, for example,
how'd you do it?
So I had, as simple and basic as it sounds, this agent had a auto text responder, right? So he's like, hey, I have a listing down the street from you, and I said, bring a picture of the listing, and he had the sign. I said, the seller was like, can you please text that number? So the seller texts the number, instantly gets an auto text back, and we had someone in the office instantly call. So all that the seller did now was make a text, get a text back, and instantly get a call saying, hi, this is Byron calling from Sharran Srivatsa's office. Looks like you're interested in 123 Main Street. Do you have any questions about it, or when would you like to go see it? Right? Just that, and I had them do it on speaker because I knew that call was coming. So now the seller, it brought it to life that anytime somebody inquires on that, that is what they're going to get in from a response time perspective. All agents may do that, but showing that live demo in the living room is so powerful. And I told him about these three things. Whenever we're presenting something, it's these three words: show, flow, or demo. You got to either show something as to how it works, you got to break down the flow, or you got to demo it. If you don't show, flow, or demo, they don't understand.
Yeah.
So, but showing the basic demo of a text and callback and a simple script from an ISA calling them back lit up the seller, because the seller was like, that's what you're going to do when I have a sign in front of in my yard, and that made the process come to life for them, as opposed to us saying we have a 76-point marketing plan.
On listing appointments, I used to, when we get to price, I'd say, have you guys ever heard of the MLS? Oh yeah, we've heard of it. Have you ever been on it?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's only for agents. I would just take my computer out, I'd log in, and I'd give it to them.
Yeah.
I'd give them the laptop. Okay, this is how you look up, this is okay. So then you tell me the price. Basically now getting them to give me the price because they're on the MLS and empowering them with what agents, no agent, they bring the same printed CMA, and what you were talking about earlier is what I would do. Hey, I know the 2 or 3 agents, the average agents that you're interviewing are going to bring you a CMA. It's going to be 50 pages of fluff, and it's going to look they're all going to look the same. They're all printed out. Here's where they're driving that data from. I just want you to be able to come up with your own analysis.
Dude, if agents are still doing the CMA, you should continue to do that, but I have one tip for everybody. Instead of, there has never been, not once, and I've had a chance to be with hundreds of agents and across the living group, there's never been one CMA conversation that has ever been smooth, right? Byron takes the CMA, I take the CMA, and then you just start flipping. You're like, that kitchen's better than my kitchen. What about this house?
Yeah.
It gets frustrating that way. So my suggestion always is when you're doing the CMA, do a 5 to 10 bullet point highlight sheet on top of it, and then tab the highlights. So now when I hand you the CMA, you can say, hey Byron, I actually our team went and crunched all the data to figure out the right pricing range to get you the highest possible price in that range. I want to tell you the factors that drive that, and I've highlighted that on the front. Can we go through that? So now you're not going to flip. Now I can say, hey, days on market is this. Let me explain days on market. Seller's market is this. Let me explain that. Three comps for us are this. Comps means this. So now I can use the highlight sheet as opposed to
Flipping,
right?
Yeah.
And that keeps them connected to you and your expertise, because when they start flipping, they're out of rapport. They're out of frame. So the simplest thing that we can do is do the CMA. You're going to do the research anyway. Just put a cover sheet on top with the bullet points and just go through the bullet points, and then you'll get whatever pricing you want.